The silence in the command bridge of the Vorthak warship Crystal Dawn was broken only by the soft humming of energy cores. Admiral Taman stood before the massive viewing screen, his forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the distant stars. His blue-scaled skin reflected the soft glow of the ship's biocrystal walls. "Admiral," called Captain Jiwan from her station. Her voice carried the musical tone that all Vorthak possessed. "We are approaching the edge of the sector marked in our star charts." Taman nodded slowly. The Vorthak Empire had been expanding for over 3,000 years. They had met dozens of alien species. Most had joined the Empire willingly after seeing the beauty and power of Vorthak technology. Those who refused were quickly shown the error of their ways. "What do our long-range sensors tell us about this region?" Taman asked. Commander Kyung-soo looked up from his tactical display. The crystal formations growing from his forehead glowed brighter as he concentrated. "We detect signs of industrial activity. Metal refineries. Energy signatures that suggest a spacefaring civilization. But Admiral, something is strange." "Strange how?" "They appear to be using very old technology. Combustion engines. Metal alloys instead of grown crystal. No bioneural networks that we can detect." Kyung-soo paused. "It is like finding a civilization that never moved past their primitive age." Taman felt a familiar mixture of curiosity and disappointment. Another backward species. Still, the Empire needed workers, and primitive civilizations often had useful raw materials. "Take us closer, but maintain stealth protocols." The Crystal Dawn and its escort ships moved deeper into what their star charts labeled as unexplored space. The Vorthak vessels were things of beauty. Their hulls were grown rather than built, formed from living crystal that could repair itself and adapt to damage. Smooth curves and flowing lines made them look more like sea creatures than warships. As they traveled, the sensor readings became clearer. This new species called themselves humans. They lived on a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Their technology was indeed primitive by Vorthak standards. They still used metal and ceramic materials. Their ships burned chemical fuel or used basic fusion reactors. "Look at this," said Lieutenant Minho from the science station. His young voice carried excitement. "They build their ships like boxes. All straight lines and flat surfaces. No curve or flow at all." Captain Jiwan moved to look at his display. "How ugly. Do they have no sense of beauty? No understanding of efficient design?" "Perhaps they are a young species," suggested Commander Kyung-soo. "They may not have learned proper engineering yet." Admiral Taman studied the data streams flowing across his screens. The humans had spread to several star systems. They had colonies and mining operations. For a primitive species, they were quite busy, but their ships were small and appeared to be lightly armed. "What weapons do they carry?" he asked. "This is the strangest part," Kyung-soo replied. "They seem to favor kinetic weapons. Physical projectiles launched by chemical explosions or magnetic acceleration. It is like they never discovered plasma projection or energy manipulation." The bridge crew exchanged looks of amusement. Kinetic weapons were what species used before they learned to harness pure energy. Every civilized race understood that energy weapons were superior. They could be charged from the ship's power core. They traveled at light speed. They could be adjusted for different effects. Physical projectiles were limited by the amount of ammunition a ship could carry. They traveled slowly compared to energy beams. They could be stopped by simple barriers. Only the most backward civilizations still use such crude tools. "Have they noticed our presence?" Taman asked. "No, Admiral. Our stealth systems are far beyond their detection capabilities. We have observed several of their patrol vessels, small ships with minimal crews. Their largest vessels appear to be cargo haulers." Taman made his decision. "Send a message to High Command. Inform them that we have discovered a new species suitable for incorporation into the Empire. Request permission to begin contact protocols." The message was sent through the quantum communication array that connected all Vorthak ships to their home worlds. The reply came within hours. "High Command grants permission," reported the communications officer. "We are authorized to make contact and demand submission. Standard expansion protocol applies." Standard protocol was simple. The Vorthak would reveal themselves to the new species. They would demonstrate their superior technology. They would offer the choice: join the Empire willingly and enjoy its protection and benefits, or resist and face the consequences. Most species chose wisely. Those who did not were quickly convinced by a demonstration of Vorthak military power. A few plasma strikes on military targets usually ended any thoughts of resistance. "Very well. said Admiral Taman. "Begin preparations for first contact. I want our fastest courier ship to approach one of their patrol vessels. We will see how these humans react to meeting their betters." Captain Sujin's ship, the Swift Current, was selected for the honor. It was a small but elegant vessel, its crystal hull shaped like a flowing teardrop, perfect for making a good first impression while still showing obvious technological superiority. The human patrol ship they approached was called the UES Frontier Guard. It was an ugly metal box with weapon ports along its sides and engines that glowed with primitive fusion fire. Compared to the graceful Vorthak vessel, it looked like something built by children. The humans detected the Swift Current when it was still several hundred kilometers away. Their communications came in radio waves, another sign of their backward technology. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earthship Frontier Guard. You have entered human territorial space. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. Captain Sujin responded using the human language, which their computers had decoded easily. Greetings, humans. I am Captain Sujin of the Vorthak Empire. We come in peace to make contact with your species. There was a long pause. Then the human captain spoke again. The Vorthak Empire? We've never heard of you. Where do you come from? We come from the Galactic Core region. Our empire spans thousands of star systems. We seek to establish relations with your people. Another pause. I need to report this to my superiors. Can you wait while I send a message to Earth? Sujin was amused. The humans wanted to ask permission before talking to obviously superior beings. Such primitive thinking, of course. We will wait. As the hours passed, more human ships arrived. All were the same basic design, metal boxes with primitive weapons. The Vorthak crew watched with growing confidence. These humans had quantity but no quality. Their ships looked tough but clumsy. When the time came for demonstrations of power, this would be easier than expected. The humans, Admiral Taman decided, would make excellent workers for the Empire's expansion projects. They seemed industrious and organized. With proper guidance, they might even learn to build decent ships someday. He had no idea how wrong he was about everything. 3 weeks had passed since first contact. Admiral Taman stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his war fleet move through space like a school of crystal fish. 200 Vorthak vessels spread out in perfect formation. Each ship gleamed with biocrystal hulls that caught and reflected starlight in beautiful patterns. "Admiral," said Captain G1, "we are now deep inside human space. Our scouts report that their main defense fleet is gathering." Taman nodded. The humans had been busy since first contact. They had sent messages across their territories. Ships had moved to new positions. It was clear they were preparing for war. "How many ships do they have?" he asked. Commander Kyung-soo checked his readings. "Our long-range sensors detect approximately 50 vessels. All appear to be the same basic design we observed before. Metal construction, primitive fusion drives, kinetic weapons. 50 ships against our 200, mused Lieutenant Minho. And their technology is centuries behind ours. This will be over quickly." The Vorthak had tried to negotiate. They had offered the humans a place in the Empire. The terms were generous, they thought. The humans would keep their worlds but accept Vorthak guidance. They would provide raw materials and labor in exchange for protection and advanced technology. The humans had refused. Not just refused, but done so in terms that some Vorthak found insulting. Their leader, someone called the Secretary General, had used words like sovereignty and independence, primitive concepts that civilized species had moved beyond long ago. "Admiral," came a new voice. It was Communications Officer Sungjin. "We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Put it on the main screen. The image that appeared showed a human in a military uniform. The being had only 2 arms and no visible scales or crystals. Its skin was a pale pink color, and hair grew from the top of its head. By Vorthak standards, it was quite ugly. "I am Admiral Park of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You are in violation of human space. Turn around and leave, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Taman almost laughed. This primitive creature was threatening him? With 50 old ships against his modern fleet? "I am Admiral Taman of the Vorthak Empire," he replied. "You have refused our generous offer of protection. You have chosen to resist the natural order. We will now demonstrate why this was unwise." The human admiral stared back with cold eyes. "So be it. All human ships, this is Admiral Park. You are cleared to engage. Show them what Earth steel can do. The transmission ended. Taman shook his head. Earth steel? These humans still used metal for everything. How could they hope to match crystal-grown hulls that could adapt and heal? All ships, Taman broadcast to his fleet. Begin the attack. Standard suppression pattern. Target their engines first. We want prisoners, not debris. The Vorthak fleet moved forward like a tide of light. Their ships were beautiful even in war, flowing through space with graceful movements. Weapon ports opened along their hulls, revealing the soft glow of charging plasma arrays. Human ships detected at 2 million kilometers in closing. Reported Weapons Officer Byomgyu. They are moving to intercept. Their ships are so slow, commented Captain Nari from her position. Look how they lumber through space. Like flying rocks, it was true. The human vessels moved in straight lines with no grace at all. They did not flow or dance through space. They simply pointed where they wanted to go and pushed forward with brute force. Sir, said Lieutenant Deho, I am detecting something odd. The human ships appear to be larger than we first thought. Larger how? Asked Taman. Our initial scans were focused on their main hulls, but they seem to have additional structures attached. Storage pods, maybe, or cargo containers. Taman frowned. Why would warships carry cargo into battle? Unless the humans were so primitive they used the same ships for war and trade? It does not matter, he decided. Cargo containers will not stop plasma fire. All weapons prepare to fire on my command. The two fleets rushed toward each other across the dark void of space. The Vorthak ships spread out in attack formation, their weapons glowing brighter as they charged. The human ships maintained their straight course, showing no fear or tactical sense. 1 million kilometers, reported Minho. 800,000. 600,000, why are they not firing? Wondered Jiwon. Their weapons have shorter range than ours, but they should be shooting by now. Perhaps they are paralyzed by fear, suggested Kyung-soo. They have realized the hopelessness of their situation. 400,000 kilometers, Minho continued. 300,000. 200,000. All ships, commanded Taman. Fire when ready. The Vorthak fleet opened fire as one. Hundreds of plasma beams lanced across space. Brilliant streams of pure energy that could melt through the heaviest armor known to any species in the galaxy. The beams struck the human ships dead on. And absolutely nothing happened. The plasma fire splashed across the human hulls like water hitting stone. The metal surfaces did not even glow from the heat. The ships continued their advance without slowing or changing course. What? Gasped Byomgyu. That is impossible. No armor can resist concentrated plasma fire. How thick are their hulls? Demanded Taman. Deho worked frantically at his sensors. Admiral, I am reading armor thickness of... This cannot be right. These readings show solid metal plating over 3 meters thick on some sections. 3 meters? G1 stared at the display. What species builds ships that heavy? The human fleet was much closer now. Close enough that the Vorthak sensors could get detailed scans. What they saw made no sense. Admiral, whispered Minho, his voice full of shock. Those are not cargo pods on their ships. Then what are they? Weapons, sir. But not like any weapons I have ever seen. The human ships were opening their weapon ports now. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Each port was larger than the main plasma cannons on a Vorthak cruiser. What kind of weapons are those? Asked Taman, though part of him already feared the answer. Kinetic weapons, sir, replied Minho quietly. Very large kinetic weapons. The human fleet had stopped advancing. Their ships hung in space like dark metal mountains, bristling with weapon ports that gaped open like hungry mouths. Admiral Taman stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. How many weapons are we looking at? He asked quietly. Lieutenant Minho worked at his sensors with shaking hands. Each human ship carries between 200 and 800 individual weapon systems. Sir, the total count across their fleet is over 20,000 kinetic weapons. 20,000? Captain Jiwon's voice was barely a whisper. That is impossible. No ship can carry that many weapons and still function. Commander Kyung-soo studied the energy readings from the human vessels. Admiral, their power signatures are enormous. Each ship is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined. But they are using primitive fusion reactors, protested Weapons Officer Byomgyu. How can they produce so much power? Look at the size of their reactors, said Deho, pointing to his display. Each human ship has dozens of them. They have built their vessels around power generation, Taman felt a cold understanding creeping into his mind. The humans had not built warships in the traditional sense. They had built weapons platforms, flying fortresses designed for one purpose only. "Sir," called Communications Officer Sungjin, "we are receiving another transmission from the human fleet." The face of Admiral Park appeared on the screen again. Behind him, Taman could see other humans working at control stations. Their expressions were calm and professional. "Admiral Taman," the human said, "you have fired upon vessels of the United Earth Defense Force. This is an act of war. You have one chance to withdraw your fleet. Leave human space immediately or we will respond with force." Taman found his voice. "You cannot threaten us. We have 200 ships to your 50. Admiral Park's expression did not change. "Numbers are not everything, Admiral. You should know that in space combat, tonnage usually wins. Your ships displace about 50,000 tons each. Our destroyers displace 200,000 tons. Our cruisers displace 500,000 tons. Our battleship displaces 1.2 million tons. Impossible," breathed Ji-won. "No ship can be that massive and still move." But Taman was looking at the sensor readings. The largest human vessel was indeed enormous. It dwarfed anything in the Vorthak fleet. How had they missed its true size? "Your plasma weapons appear to be ineffective against our armor," Admiral Park continued. "Our kinetic weapons, however, will go through your crystal hulls like paper. Last warning, Admiral. Leave now." The transmission ended. The bridge of the Crystal Dawn fell silent except for the humming of biocrystal systems. "Admiral," said Kyung-soo slowly, "I recommend we consider withdrawal. These humans have surprised us. Perhaps we should study them more before engaging." "Withdraw?" Taman's forearms clenched into fists. "The Vorthak Empire does not retreat from primitives. We have plasma cannons that can boil oceans. We have shields that can stop any attack. We have armor that repairs itself. But sir," Minho said carefully, "their armor stopped our plasma fire completely. Then we use more plasma fire. All ships concentrate fire on their largest vessel. Full power all weapons. Show these humans what real technology can do." The Vorthak fleet opened fire again. Every plasma cannon in the armada focused on the massive human battleship. The beams combined into a stream of energy so bright it lit up the surrounding space like a small star. The energy struck the human ship's hull and simply disappeared. The metal absorbed the heat and dispersed it through internal systems. Cooling vents opened along the ship's surface, glowing red for a moment before returning to normal. "No effect," reported Beomgyu in disbelief. "No effect at all. How is that possible?" demanded Taman. "Sir," said Daeho, studying his readings, "their armor is not just thick. It appears to be made of layers, reactive armor, ceramic plates, metal composites. And behind that, their hull structure is honeycombed with cooling systems and damage control networks. They built their ships to absorb energy weapons," realized Ji-won. They knew plasma fire was coming and prepared for it. The human battleship was rotating now. Its massive bulk turned slowly to present its broadside to the Vorthak fleet. Weapon ports ran along its entire length like windows in a city building. Each port was large enough to fit a Vorthak fighter inside. "Energy spike detected," called Minho urgently. "The human ship is charging its weapons. All ships, evasive maneuvers," ordered Taman. "Prepare for incoming fire." The Vorthak vessels scattered, their graceful forms dancing through space as they had been trained. Their pilots were skilled, their ships were fast, and their formation was perfect. None of it mattered. The human battleship fired its first salvo. Not beams of energy, but solid projectiles launched by magnetic acceleration. The rounds were massive chunks of dense metal, each one weighing several tons. They had been accelerated to tremendous speed by the ship's railguns. The projectiles crossed the distance between fleets in seconds. The Vorthak ships tried to dodge, but kinetic rounds do not turn corners. Where the Vorthak vessels would be when the rounds arrived had been calculated by human computers with perfect accuracy. 3 Vorthak cruisers simply vanished. The kinetic round struck them with so much force that their crystal hulls shattered instantly. The energy of impact was converted to heat and light, creating brief new stars where proud warships had been moments before. "Shields," screamed Taman. "Raise shields." "Shields are up," replied Beomgyu. "But sir, energy shields do not stop solid objects." Another salvo from the human ship. This time 6 Vorthak vessels died. The kinetic rounds punched through their shields as if they were made of air. Crystal armor that could regenerate from energy damage was useless against physical impact at these speeds. "Return fire," ordered Taman desperately. "All ships return fire." The Vorthak fleet launched everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, energy torpedoes. All of it struck the human battleship, and all of it was absorbed or deflected by armor, designed specifically to defeat energy weapons. The human ship fired again, and again. Each salvo was perfectly aimed. Each round struck with devastating force. Vorthak ships died with each volley, their beautiful crystal forms reduced to glowing debris. "Admiral," said Captain Nari from her ship, her voice tight with fear, "we have to retreat. We cannot fight this." But retreat was not easy when the enemy could hit you from distances where you could not effectively return fire. The human weapons had enormous range and pinpoint accuracy. The Vorthak ships were fast, but not faster than guided projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed. "Sir," whispered Sungjin, "the other human ships are moving to attack positions." Taman looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. The massive battleship had been holding back. It was only using a fraction of its weapons, and behind it 49 other human warships were preparing to join the battle. The Vorthak Empire had sent 200 ships to conquer primitives, armed with kinetic weapons. They were about to learn why kinetic weapons had never truly gone out of style. The human battleship Indomitable continued its methodical destruction of the Vorthak fleet. Each time its weapons fired, more crystal ships turned into expanding clouds of glowing debris. Admiral Taman watched his proud armada being torn apart, and felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Terror. "Casualty report?" he demanded, though he dreaded the answer. Captain Jiwan's voice shook as she read from her display. 47 ships destroyed, 16 more with severe damage. The humans have lost 0 ships and taken 0 damage. 0 damage. The words echoed in Taman's mind. His fleet had fired thousands of plasma rounds, and the humans had not even been scratched. Meanwhile, every human shot killed multiple Vorthak vessels. "Sir," called Lieutenant Minho urgently, "the other human ships are opening fire." The smaller human vessels had been waiting, watching the battleship demonstrate what their weapons could do. Now they joined the slaughter. Destroyers and cruisers opened their weapon ports and began launching their own kinetic rounds. The projectiles came in waves. Not the precise, calculated shots of the battleship, but massive volleys designed to saturate an area of space with deadly metal. The Vorthak ships found themselves flying through storms of kinetic rounds moving at incredible speeds. Commander Kyung-soo tried to coordinate evasive maneuvers, but it was hopeless. "Sir, they are not aiming at where we are. They are aiming at where we will be. Their computers are predicting our movements." "Then stop moving predictably," ordered Taman. "We have tried random evasion patterns. It does not matter. They have too many weapons and we have too many ships in too small an area." The truth was becoming clear. The Vorthak had flown into a trap. They had brought a large fleet into a confined space, expecting to overwhelm the humans with superior numbers and technology. Instead, they had created a target-rich environment where every human shot was guaranteed to hit something. "Admiral," said Weapons Officer Byung-gyu, "I am analyzing the human projectiles. They are not simple metal rounds." "What do you mean?" "Each projectile contains multiple smaller warheads. When they strike our shields, they separate into fragments. The shields stop the main projectile, but the fragments pass through and hit the hull." Taman stared at the tactical display. The humans had designed their weapons specifically to defeat energy shields. While other species had focused on making shields stronger, humans had simply built weapons that ignored shields entirely. "And sir," Byung-gyu continued, "the projectiles are not just kinetic. Some contain explosive charges that detonate after penetrating the hull. Others carry magnetic charges that disrupt our crystal matrices. They have different types of ammunition for different targets." "They have been studying us," realized Captain Jiwan. "During the 3 weeks since first contact, they have been learning about our technology and designing weapons to counter it." The human fleet was spreading out now, forming a sphere around the remaining Vorthak ships. There would be no escape. Every direction led to human weapons. "Sir," called Communications Officer Sungjin, "we are receiving another transmission from Admiral Park." The human admiral appeared on screen again. Behind him, Taman could see status boards showing the progress of the battle. Green indicators showed all human ships operational. Red indicators showed the destruction of the Vorthak fleet. "Admiral Taman," Park said calmly, "you now have fewer than 100 ships remaining. My offer to let you withdraw is still open, but it will not remain open much longer." "You are murdering my crews," Taman said, his voice thick with anger and desperation. "No," Park replied. "You are murdering your crews by refusing to surrender. Every ship you lose from this point forward dies because of your pride, not my weapons. We are the Vorthak Empire. We do not surrender to primitives." Admiral Park's expression hardened. "Primitives? Admiral, you are looking at the result of 10,000 years of human warfare. Every weapon on these ships represents lessons learned in blood. We have fought each other across our entire history, and we have gotten very good at killing." The transmission paused as another volley from the human fleet destroyed 8 more Vorthak vessels. "Your plasma weapons are elegant," Park continued. "Your crystal ships are beautiful. Your technology is sophisticated, but you have never had to fight a species that approaches warfare as an engineering problem to be solved." "What do you mean?" asked Taman. "You build ships to be graceful and efficient. We build ships to destroy other ships. You design weapons to be versatile and multi-purpose. We design weapons to kill specific targets as effectively as possible. You fight wars to demonstrate superiority. We fight wars to end them." Another pause. Another volley. Another 6 Vorthak ships turned to debris. "You want to know why our ships are so heavily armored? Because we know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of kinetic weapons. You want to know why we have so many guns? Because we have learned that in space combat, the side that can deliver more destructive force wins." Taman felt his remaining ships dying around him. The beautiful crystal hulls that had taken years to grow were being shattered in seconds by crude metal projectiles. "You call us primitive because we use kinetic weapons," Admiral Park said, "but kinetic energy is the most basic force in the universe. When a projectile moving at high speed hits a target, physics does the rest. No shields, no exotic technology, no clever engineering can change the fundamental equation of mass times velocity." The human commander leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, your technology is centuries ahead of ours in many areas. Your ships can repair themselves. Your weapons are more efficient. Your computers are more sophisticated. But you forgot the most important lesson in warfare, which is, it does not matter how advanced your technology is if the enemy can deliver more force to the target than your defenses can absorb." As if to emphasize the point, the Indomitable fired another massive salvo. This time the rounds were aimed not at individual ships but at the center of the Vorthak formation. The kinetic warheads exploded in sequence, creating a chain reaction of destruction that claimed 15 ships in a single moment. 68 ships remaining, reported Captain Jiwan quietly. Admiral Park was still speaking. "We have studied your empire, Admiral. You have conquered dozens of species using the same tactics. Show up with superior technology, demand surrender, destroy anyone who resists. It works when you are fighting species that think the same way you do." "And how do we think?" asked Taman. "You think warfare is about elegance and efficiency. You build the minimum force necessary to achieve victory. You design weapons to be versatile and multi-role." Park smiled grimly. "We build weapons to be devastating and ship-specific. When we design a gun to kill cruisers, it kills cruisers. When we design armor to stop energy weapons, it stops energy weapons." The human fleet fired again. The Vorthak fleet died a little more. "Last chance, Admiral," said Park. "Surrender now and your remaining crews live. Continue fighting and they all die. The choice is yours." Admiral Taman looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him with expressions of fear and desperation. Outside, his once mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons he had dismissed as primitive. He opened his mouth to give the order to surrender. But pride is a powerful thing, and the Vorthak had been proud for a very long time. Admiral Taman closed his mouth without giving the surrender order. Around him, his bridge crew waited in tense silence. Outside, the human fleet hung in space like predators waiting for the killing blow. "Admiral," whispered Captain Jiwan, "we must surrender. There is no shame in acknowledging superior force." But there was shame, at least in Taman's mind. The Vorthak Empire had never surrendered to anyone. They were the most advanced civilization in known space. They brought order and progress to primitive worlds. How could they bow to beings who still used metal and chemical explosives? "Sir," called Lieutenant Minho urgently, "the human battleship is rotating again. It is bringing more weapons to bear. The Indomitable was indeed turning, presenting a fresh broadside to the Vorthak fleet. Weapon ports that had remained closed during the battle were now opening. The ship had been holding back, using only a fraction of its total firepower. "How many weapons does that ship carry?" asked Commander Kyung-soo in amazement. "Sensors indicate over 3,000 individual weapon systems," Minho replied. "Admiral, it has been toying with us. It could have destroyed our entire fleet in the first few minutes." The realization hit Taman like a physical blow. The humans had not been fighting a battle. They had been conducting a demonstration. Every carefully aimed shot, every pause between volleys, every warning to surrender. It had all been designed to show the Vorthak exactly how outmatched they were. "Sir," said Communications Officer Sungjin, "Admiral Park is transmitting again." The human commander appeared on screen one final time. His expression was patient but firm, like a teacher dealing with a stubborn student. "Admiral Taman," he said, "I am going to explain something to you. My ship, the Indomitable, masses 1.2 million tons. Of that mass, approximately 400,000 tons is weapons and ammunition. Another 300,000 tons is armor and defensive systems. The remaining 500,000 tons is engines, power generation, and life support." He paused to let those numbers sink in. "Your flagship masses 50,000 tons total. My ship carries 8 times your total mass in weapons alone, and the Indomitable is not even our largest warship." Taman felt his legs weaken. He sank into his command chair, staring at the human admiral. "Do you understand what I am telling you?" Park continued. "This is not a warship in the sense that you understand the term. This is a mobile weapons platform, a flying fortress built for one purpose only: to destroy other ships. We do not build ships to be elegant or efficient. We build them to win wars." The human admiral gestured to something off-screen. "My weapons officer tells me that your remaining ships are clustering together for protection. This is a mistake, watch." The Indomitable fired a single projectile. Not a volley, not a barrage, just one round. But this projectile was different from the others. As it approached the center of the Vorthak formation, it split apart into hundreds of smaller warheads. Each warhead then split again, creating a cloud of thousands of tiny projectiles. The sub-munitions struck the Vorthak ships like a metal rainstorm. Every vessel in the formation took dozens of hits simultaneously. Crystal hulls that had withstood plasma fire cracked and shattered under the impact of hundreds of small, fast-moving projectiles. 23 ships died in that single shot. Cluster munitions, Admiral Park explained calmly. Designed specifically for formations of light ships. 1 round maximum casualties. Taman stared at the tactical display. His fleet now numbered fewer than 40 ships. Around him, his officers were openly weeping. The pride of the Vorthak Empire was being destroyed by beings they had considered primitive. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why did you develop such weapons? What enemy forced you to build ships like this?" Admiral Park's expression grew somber. "Each other, Admiral. For 10,000 years, humans have fought humans. We have had wars that consumed entire continents. We have built weapons that could destroy worlds. Every innovation in killing, every advance in destruction, was developed because some other group of humans had developed a defense against our previous weapons." The human commander looked directly into the camera. "You see kinetic weapons as primitive. To us, they are the refined end result of millennia of warfare. We tried energy weapons, plasma guns, particle beams. Then someone invented armor that could stop them. So we went back to kinetic weapons but made them faster, smarter, more devastating." "You built ships to fight other humans?" asked Captain Jiwon in disbelief. "We built ships to fight anything that might threaten humanity," Park replied. "When we reached space, we knew we would eventually meet other species. Some might be peaceful, others might not. So we prepared for the worst possible scenario." He gestured again, and the remaining human ships began moving into new positions. "Admiral Taman, you are that worst possible scenario. An aggressive empire that demands submission and destroys those who refuse. The exact enemy we have been preparing to fight for centuries." "We offer civilization," protested Taman weakly. "Order, progress, technology." "At the point of a gun," Park replied. "Just as we have offered those things to each other throughout our history. We know what you are because we have been what you are." The human fleet was surrounding the last Vorthak ships now. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The demonstration was almost over. "The difference," Admiral Park continued, "is that we learned better. We learned that true civilization cannot be imposed by force. That real progress comes from cooperation, not conquest. That the strongest species is not the one with the best weapons, but the one that does not need to use them. He leaned forward slightly. This is your last chance, Admiral. Surrender now and your remaining crews will be treated with dignity. Your wounded will be cared for. Your ships will be allowed to return home with a message for your empire. And what message would that be? Asked Taman. That humanity is willing to coexist peacefully with any species that respects our sovereignty, but that we are prepared to defend ourselves against any species that does not. Admiral Taman looked around his bridge one more time. His officers stared back at him with hope and desperation. 37 ships remained from his original fleet of 200. The humans had demonstrated that they could destroy the rest of his forces at any time. Pride, he realized, was a luxury he could no longer afford. Admiral Park, he said formally, I surrender the remaining ships of the Vorthak Third Fleet. I request quarter for my crews and safe passage home for our survivors. The tension on the bridge broke like a dam bursting. Several officers sagged in relief. Others openly wept. All of them understood that they had just witnessed the end of Vorthak expansion. Surrender accepted, Admiral Park replied with dignity. Lower your weapons and prepare to be escorted to the edge of human space. Your wounded will be transferred to our medical ships for treatment. The transmission ended. Around the Vorthak survivors, the human fleet began moving into escort formation. The demonstration was over. As the combined fleets began their journey toward the border, Admiral Taman composed his report to the Vorthak High Command. It would be the most important message in the Empire's history. The humans, he would write, were not primitive. They were the most dangerous species the Vorthak had ever encountered. Not because of their technology, but because of their experience. They had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill efficiently. The Vorthak Empire would have to learn a new way to expand, one that did not involve threatening species that had spent their entire existence perfecting the art of war.